Happy Monday. It's that day of the week again, top of the week. You know what that means? It's a brand new Plug Talk Sports episode 74. You know me, Danny Torres. We got Janka and we got Brandon. I told these guys when we got onto the pod, I'm like, hey, man, Monday looks like it's done a number to you guys. Understandable. Mondays are rough. Mondays are usually rough, but you know what? It's usually our favorite day of the week because we get on here, talk some sports, and bring some entertainment for you guys. But here we are. Let's get into our plugs and shameless plugs of the week. Let's start with bad news. I'll go first. It's time to switch it around. Dude, the Marlins are so screwed. They're so screwed. This is my shameless plug of the week. Like, everyone was like, oh, the Mets lost Jacob deGrom. That's so good for us. And then they go out and replace him with Justin Verlander. And then the Phillies go out and sign Trey Turner. Like, if the Marlins want to be competitive at all, like, they need to start making some moves. And, like, the whole league right now, if you go on Twitter, the whole league is making fun of them. I don't know what's going to happen with that team, man. No matter, at the beginning, they're like, oh, ownership change. We need ownership change. They change the owner, the general manager, whatever, and it's still the same thing. Like, yeah, I like the rebranding and their social media. It's gotten a lot better, but, like, it's bad. It's bad. And that's my shameless plug.
I don't know. I mean, for the Marlins themselves, you think it wouldn't be hard to recruit in Miami baseball players. Keyword baseball players in South Florida, a hotbed for them. But somehow, some way, I don't know. So, I mean, it's not even, I don't even know what to say on that one, man. The Marlins I hate to say it, are the Marlins. But I guess we'll start with bad news. It's finals week here at UF. And for me personally, doing stuff with the papers, making articles, podcasts, class, games to work for the ticket office here, which I work for. And I have 2 exams tomorrow. So all of that in between, I've had probably 4 hours of sleep, maybe 5 hours of sleep, not too positive. But the best part about it, I'm still breathing. So either way, probably my time not being in my bed, probably the worst part of this week.
That's the worst, man. Let me tell you, when you my body functions. My body can function on like 5 hours of sleep. I've even done 3 hours of sleep before. But like when you do that consistently, you can get away with it, and you're gonna be like, wow, I can pull this off. But there's always gonna be that one day where you wake up and you're like, man, I feel like garbage.
Yeah.
But I can't do that. Jonka?
My shameless plug is gonna have to be my dark horse for the World Cup. Japan losing today, or was it yesterday? I don't remember.
Oh, it was today.
Yeah, it was
today. Yeah. My mind is everywhere today. Screw Monday. Yeah, they lost in penalties. I was disappointed, but good. It was good to see Japan actually play well in this tournament. So till today, I'm actually proud of them. Hopefully, in 2026, maybe they can pull something off. Like Brandon said before the podcast started, the Blue Lock project continues.
Yes.
Daniel doesn't understand what I'm talking about, but
I don't even think I care to understand.
Oh, dude, best show out there right now. It's literally good. The World Cup. If it wasn't for the United States and the word soccer, Japan, the Blue Project, whatever the Blue Lock Project. I mean, that goes hand in hand. You gotta know that, man. It's like Jonka knows ball right now. Jonka knows ball. That's huge.
All right. I'll give it. I'll give it 10. But yeah, Japan. That was sad. I felt like Japan has a lot to be proud of. Tweeted out earlier today. They have a lot to be proud of. I think they shocked the world. They beat Germany and Spain. That's you don't see that often, but they have a lot to be proud of. Let's go into good news. I'll start off. We're back at the top. Columbus is heading to the state championship in football.
Nice.
I felt like I was going to throw up out of anxiety in that last game. We played a team from Central Florida in the Orlando area called Ocoee. And man, the game was decided in the last 40 seconds of the fourth quarter. It was just back and forth the entire night. And it was just, I couldn't take it. I was like, man, like, it was too much anxiety happening in the game, but they won and they're going to the state championship, which is at Drive Pink Stadium on December 17th. Here's the funny thing. The team that we're playing is also an Orlando area team that I also have personal ties to. It is Apopka, which my aunt and uncle used to live in the Apopka area. And this team has faced, coming up this state championship will be the third time that Columbus and Apopka face each other in the state championship.
Wow.
The first time was my junior year of high school in 2014, where we lost 30-24. Then they go back again in 2019, and Columbus wins 21-20. And this year it's round 3, and it's gonna kind of be of like a deal breaker, an icebreaker to see who unties the series. But it's kind of frustrating. It's like every time we go to the state championship, it just has to be them. It has to be them that we end up playing. But they're a very successful team. They made to the state championship last season, but they lost 35-7 to Venice Beach. In the last, just to give you an outlook of how successful their program has been, in the last 11 years, Apopka's been to the state championship 6 out of those 11 years. So they're pretty impressive. And for Columbus, out of the last 11 years, we've been to the state championship 4 years out of those 11. But yeah, and then you look at the number, we've won, out of those 4, we've won 2. And for them, out of 6, they've only won 2. So it's kind of, Apopka is a pretty dominant program when it comes to making the state championship and in the state of Florida. But yeah, I'm excited. It's my good news. I'm excited to be able to go to the state championship.
Nice. And also, Columbus, obviously, because I know you have huge ties there, teaching there, obviously, former student there.
Yeah.
So we're all very happy for Columbus. Unfortunately, can't say the same thing for my former high school. Football program was not there at all. But and also for probably my favorite thing this week, the best thing from me this week, for the paper that I worked for here in Gainesville, the Independent Alligator. It was our last print night for basically the fall, and I ended up working on 2 stories that ended up going on prints. Actually, one that went on print, I was covering specifically this place in Gainesville on the UF campus. It's called the Rights Union, kind of this main kind of gathering area.
Yeah.
Packed out crowd for the World Cup, United States versus Netherlands. Yeah. I was able to get a bunch of interviews there, a couple of American fans, a bunch of people who wanted to go there because they saw stuff from Barstool. I even went to actually interview a Netherlands exchange student, so that was pretty awesome. But I ended up doing it with this guy, Kyle, that's also with the sports desk there. So I was able to do that, and then also got a volleyball one done as well with my good friend and also beat reporter for volleyball here at the Gators, Ethan. So I was able to get 2 stories on print, and one of them actually made it to the cover. So,
oh wow!
So a lot of work, but probably the best thing I've seen all week. Probably love that.
I saw your story. I saw your Instagram story of the Union Center there, and I saw the World Cup, and it looked really cool, man. It looked really hype.
Oh my gosh, a crazy atmosphere. If only America could just. I know we're going to talk about later on in this podcast, but if only they get that win, man.
Yeah, man. Jonka?
It's gonna have to be the plug of the week. If you guys didn't see it on our social media, it'll have to be men's basketball at the University of Miami. Mm-hmm. They beat Louisville 80-53. For the ACC opener, they're 8-1. They play Cornell on Wednesday, then they play NC State on Saturday. Then we go on to play St. Francis, PA, easy dub there. Then we go on to play the third-ranked team in the country, Virginia Cavaliers, at home, by the way. So that's a good thing for us. Man, I'm just proud of these guys. I mean, from being, I think it was a Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight for the first time in school history in March Madness last year. I think this team is playing well to start the season, and I'm actually kind of hyped right now.
Cool. We'll see college basketball in full swing now. The season's underway. Still very young in the season, but nonetheless, it's underway. But we're gonna talk about some soccer, not football, soccer. To start out, and it is the United States taking on the Netherlands in the round of 16. First round of 16 matchup for the United States since 2014 when Tim Howard put a dominant performance against Belgium. Unfortunately, we couldn't keep the Belgians at bay and we were eliminated. Here are my thoughts on the United States and Netherlands. I think that the Dutch, after analyzing the game again, I do think that the Americans outplayed the Dutch. But I think that the Dutch had a smart game plan. The Dutch knew, or they watched their film very well. The Americans in this World Cup, in this tournament, their chances were created by the flanks. They closed that off to the Americans, forcing the Americans to play one by one, passing the ball, or one-on-one, should I say, passing the ball down the middle, which, aside from closing off the flanks for them, they clogged the middle. So throughout this entire match, the Americans did not get a through ball behind the Dutch defense at all. And the Americans dominated possession from beginning to end, but it was almost like Spain, where it was a whole lot of possession with a whole lot of nothing.
Right.
And because the flanks were closed off, where they've created so many chances, a lot of times they were caught on the ball, just standing with the ball, no motion, just looking at what can we do, look like a traffic jam on the Palmetto Expressway. And a lot of things that got me frustrated was Tim Ream, who's 35 years old and I think played great in this tournament, but I was just frustrated with him in this game where because of all this was going on, he didn't know what to do with the ball. So all he did all the time was turn around and pass it back. And it's like, the goal's this way. Stop going backwards. Especially in dying moments where you need to score, that can be extremely irritating. I think something else is a lot of people were upset, including myself. I was more confused and upset is that Jesus Ferreira started this match when he had no World Cup minutes at all through this tournament so far. And in the round of 16 matchup, which is, once you get into knockout stages, every match is crucial. So in such a crucial match, you start him over Aronson, who's been such a big player maker for this national team, or even Gio Reyna, who people were dying for him to get in, and he changes matches as well. So starting Ferreira was weird for me. People complained about Walker Zimmerman starting over Cameron Carter-Vickers. I was personally okay with that. I think Zimmerman has been such a strong line of defense for the Americans through this tournament. The defense has been solid through the tournament. They only conceded one goal throughout the group stage play until obviously now we got to this Dutch game. Here's the bottom line. It was evident since the very beginning of this World Cup that the Americans have the quality. They had the chances and they created the chances. They just did not have that striker, that lethal striker that was going to finish the opportunities. If you look at all three Netherlands goals, they were all exactly identical. And again, they did not outplay the Americans. What happened was the three opportunities that they were given, that's the difference in quality right there. They have guys who can put balls in the back of the net and clinical finishing. They got those opportunities, they took advantage of them and put them in the back of the net. And that's exactly what happened in this game. Again, I don't think the Americans were outplayed. I just think the Netherlands bagged their opportunities and they had clinical finishing. If the Americans, and this is my last take, if the Americans had a guy who could finish, I definitely could have seen the Americans at least into the semifinals of this tournament. I think that the quality is there. I think the talent is there. I just think that they're missing that one piece, and I think they have a lot of time now to reanalyze that, find that guy, and you come back on home soil in 2026 and you make a good run at it.
No, yeah. Plus, I mean, as you mentioned before, Reyna barely even showed up at all coming off the bench, which made no sense.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, the boys were buzzing out of the group stage. I mean, they didn't even concede a single goal at all. And then, of course, the Netherlands, it's like any single person that comes unannounced into the box, not a single soul looks at them, not even a batting of an eye.
Unmarked,
Exactly. Unmarked, as you said. But for the United States now, I think that, coming out of the World Cup, you still got a lot to say for at least yourself on a national stage, that you can hold yourself against England, that you can take a win in the group stage in a crucial moment like they did with Pulisic against Iran. And to see the United States actually go behind the national team in men's soccer, I think is a huge part. I think that in time, 4 years' time, these players will be now developed. I know that the head coach for the United States national team wants to see more youth in the next World Cup, which is more or less insane to even think about, because this was a young group, probably one of the most youngest group that was there in the round of 16.
Yep.
But, I mean, honestly, my honest opinion, I think if we beat out the Netherlands, I mean, Messi doesn't have a chance. I don't think anybody has a chance against the United States. I mean, when you have an American on foreign soil going crazy, like, just step out the way. Just step out the way. We would have been able to go through. So hopefully next time around, we're hosting the event. I don't know exactly where the group stage will be for the United States. Hopefully I get to see some games. Hopefully we get to see some games. But they'll definitely be showing out in front of the United States. And for sure, they should be repeating round of 16, if not better, on the next World Cup 4 years from now.
I before Jonka goes, I'm gonna back up of what you said. I know Jonka's gonna disagree with us because Argentina is his World Cup favorite, but I personally think, and we had this discussion already. I personally think that if the Americans had that guy, I think they would have beaten this Argentina team. I think that this Argentina team is not the same Argentina team from 2018. It's not the same Argentina team from 2014. I think they're running on one guy, which is Messi, and he's been able to get them past each round, each group stage game, and they struggled. They struggled in the group with Poland, Saudi Arabia, and Mexico. That's the reality of the fact, is that they struggled in that group. And the United States, who had a much tougher group, only conceded one goal, and they were able to get out of that group. I think if they had that one guy and United States caught Argentina, even if the United States lost, I think they were going to give Argentina a good fight.
Absolutely. Plus, not even that, Argentina, even the Socceroos were able to score on them.
Yep.
No offense to Australia, but I mean, if you're going to be a South American team, as let alone a favorite in this one, they got to do much better defensively. You can't just outscore people like nonstop. You know what I mean? You're not France.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It's up to Jonka now.
For USA, I agree. I think they do need maybe one or two guys that could put the ball in the back of the net, like Daniel said.
Yeah.
I think that's what they need. And I also feel like they need, I don't know, something like Brazil, like finesse, like some swagger. That you like, you know what? Let me I don't know, do something crazy, something that give this team some kind of like personality or something. Because I feel like we're just so dull. Like, to be honest, I think we're dull. I think we're just there. We can't really get like, besides Pulisic, if I say his name right.
Yeah, Pulisic.
There's not really anybody else that like stands out to me as like the guy, if you know what I mean.
But he literally, like, I'm telling you right now, I don't know, I forgot who it was against, but Pulisic literally lifted up his shirt and said, "It's called soccer," on his shirt.
No, I know. I'm saying Pulisic is one of those guys. But I'm saying besides him, there really isn't anybody on the USA team that has like that kind of, oh, I'm the guy personality.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I would say Yunus Musa, who plays for Valencia, he's very young, But he's the one that took that shot. I mean, we hadn't scored yet. It was still 2-0, but he took a bullet of a shot against the Dutch goalkeeper. But he's still very young.
Yeah, I didn't get to see the game because I was working, but I would just like to see more of like where I'm gonna bring it up again, the Blue Lock Project, which is trying to create the best striker on a team. So it's like, I think that's basically what it is. I think USA needs to create their own Blue Lock Project. Go around the US, around the world, or whatever you need to do to find the striker that you guys need that works with your team.
Exactly. And also, before I say one other thing, I just want to address the elephant in the room. Anthony Robinson was the best United States player every single time when they played. He was phenomenal. The guy looked like he can outsprint anybody. His effort, his hustle.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to squat like, 600 pounds on his back?
Yeah.
Because the way he was carrying that team going back and forth in transition, going on the sideline, I mean, honestly, England would have definitely had more chances if it wasn't for Robinson.
I got to say him and Tyler Adams. Tyler Adams has still, and we finish up round of 16 tomorrow. Tyler Adams has run more than anybody in this World Cup. It's already been measured. He has run the distance more than any player in this FIFA World Cup so far.
Yep.
He covered. There was some times where it looked like a goal was coming, and he ran full sprint all the way back and stopped some of these chances from happening.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, the United States, especially in the group stage, that was real hustle. The Netherlands one, I mean, unfortunately not.
Yeah. But, ultimately, I think that they played with a lot. And this is what I liked about it. It was a young group. And since it was a young group and none of them have World Cup experience, only one player, DeAndre Yedlin, who was in Brazil in 2014, is the only player who had World Cup experience. Since they did not have World Cup experience, they were so hungry and motivated just to ball out. Yeah. And I think that they made the country really proud, and I think that they made the country very excited for 2026. I really like this. For me, it's just missing that one striker, but I really like this core of young players.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I'll talk to David Beckham, get maybe on the academy team. We'll figure it out. I'll be wearing red, white, and blue in 4 years.
Let's get into college football. We got our final rankings already, and we got our bowl games too. We're gonna go over these final rankings. Man, it was a crazy. I will say it was a crazy conference championship weekend. Here are the rankings. At number 1, we're gonna have Georgia, of course. At 2, we're gonna have Michigan. At 3, we're going to have TCU, who lost to Kansas State in their conference championship. And then at 4, we'll have Ohio State. And I just want to say before I continue the list, bravo to the College Football Playoff Committee. They did it right. Because if I would have had Nick Saban and Alabama move into that spot, into that top 4, I was going to lose my, I'm so tired of seeing them in there. But I think they got it right this year. I think TCU deserved to be in that top 4. So like I said, at 5, you got Alabama. At 6, Tennessee. At 7, Clemson. At 8, with another shocker, back-to-back Pac-12 conference championships in Utah. At 9, you got Kansas State. At 10, falling down 6 spots after they lost, USC. At 11, Penn State. At 12, Washington. At 13, you got the Florida State Seminoles. At 14, you got Oregon State. At 15, you got Oregon. At 16, this one's crazy too, you got Tulane. At 17, you got LSU. At 18, you got UCLA. At 19, you got South Carolina. At 20, you got Texas. At 21, you got Notre Dame. At 22, you got Mississippi State. At 23, you got NC State. And then the last 2 are crazy, over from the Sun Belt Conference and Conference USA. 24, you got Troy. And 25, Conference USA winners, UTSA, to round up the year's final rankings. Let's talk about the top 4. So obviously, the matchup, it's going to be Georgia against Ohio State. Let's talk about that matchup first. Janka has Ohio State winning. I'm going to have to go with Georgia. Brandon, what's your pick? What's your thought about this matchup?
Well, I think the biggest thought that I had when it came across my mind when I first saw it on Sunday morning was that this is probably the only team in the entire bracket of out of the four, and I mean specifically Ohio State, that could actually win against a Georgia team, right? The Bulldogs obviously lost 12 of their big-time defensive players due to the NFL draft last season. They were able to rebuild on that and have the best defense again. I mean, shutting down Tennessee to 13 points when they played against them over there in Athens. And that was the number one team offensively, at least during that time period. So now to see that, CJ Stroud and obviously Coach Day, who, has been there ever since Urban Meyer had some art issues there in Ohio State. I mean, he's turned that program into what it should be, a dominant force in college football. But at the same time, Jim Harbaugh is actually cooking right now in Michigan. He got back-to-back Big Ten conference championships now. So, I mean, Ohio State dropping to number 4, this was probably the best thing for any person in the SEC that hates Georgia like myself. I hate Georgia. Kirby Smart's a phenomenal coach. And unlike the assistant coaches that happen to be under Nick Saban that end up going to head coaching jobs, Smart knows how to recruit. So with that being said, it's going to be a great matchup. I think it's going to be very tight. But at the same time, Stetson Bennett, they actually announced the Heisman finalists. And Bennett, and people, I mean, I'm telling you right now, they do give him a lot of crap. But offensively, he's been there showing out for them. So I think Stetson Bennett and the Dogs should be able to get it done. But I think it's going to be a really high-flying, entertaining game, though. I think there's going to be not a lot of defense despite Georgia being the number 1 team in the nation. But, again, CJ Stroud should have been the Heisman winner, and you never know. I think it's going to be a high – take the over. That's all I'm going to say. I can't even put a final score on it. Take the over. Ohio State loses it in a really classic game.
All right, so we got 2 Georgia Bulldogs here and 1 Ohio State Buckeye. The other matchup, Michigan and TCU. Look, my heart is telling me TCU. My mind is telling me Michigan because I really think that Michigan, at the beginning of the year, I had my doubts. I was like, we know how this goes for Michigan. They play good, and then finally towards the end of the year, they choke and whatnot. But I think after I saw them play against Ohio State, I was like, okay, this Michigan team is for real. And they're at number 2. I'm going to have to pick Michigan in the national championship over TCU. Janka, I know, told me earlier today he's got TCU in the national championship. Brandon, who do you got between Michigan and TCU?
Well, for that one, because I do feel the same way that I want the Horned Frogs to keep on going. They obviously went undefeated in a very hard conference that I think people don't really talk about in the Big 12. But, look at the Horned Frogs in their championship game. They came really close to actually winning that one. Was about a yard away in overtime to getting the winning touchdown. And they ended up losing against Kansas State. And speaking of Kansas, bravo to them. Kansas State and the University of Kansas, the Jayhawks, football programs turned around. Both of them going to bowl games. Either way, back on schedule. As I mentioned before, Harbaugh just coming off his back-to-back Big Ten championship in the conference he's in. Obviously going over Ohio State. The team is locked and loaded, and late in December, that's the scary part. Late in December, they're winning games against high matchups, big key matchups. Purdue was not an easy, foe to go against, despite what the score tells you in that conference championship. And if the score tells you anything in the Ohio State game, that just lets you know you have to play 4 quarters straight of your best football against Michigan. With that being said, I think that the Wolverines win that one against TCU. I don't believe it's going to be too close. But the Horned Frogs, they're definitely a team that I feel like they'll stick around, but they won't win it. They won't win that one.
Jaka, national championship for you, TCU, Ohio State. Who do you think wins the national championship?
Ohio State.
Okay. Now, for me and Brandon, we got Georgia and Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
The most likely outcome.
You never know.
This is a tough matchup, man.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm still like I don't know who to pick because I'm really believing in Michigan this year.
Right.
Let me just say
I might
something.
I might have to go for Michigan this year. I'm picking them as my national champions.
Mm.
If you think that defense wins championships, then you're a Georgia guy. If you don't think that, go for Michigan.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the Georgia Bulldogs themselves, I just feel like this is the best team on paper. And I really wanted to see Southern Cal and Caleb Williams go off against
Yeah.
Georgia.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see fireworks. But if we're talking about Michigan going against Georgia, a repeat of the Orange Bowl from last year, I mean, Michigan, despite the fact that Harbaugh executing really well as the head coach over there in Michigan, the talent on the field got worse for the Wolverines. So I think if we're going straight up for coaching, I mean that's like a chess match in heaven for football fans in college football. But I think the talent overall, I mean Georgia's got that one. I think they got it. So I think the Bulldogs end up winning that one.
Okay, so you would have Georgia repeating as national champions.
Back to back. And funny enough, they didn't win a championship in like 41 years, and now they're back-to-back champions, most likely. So
Okay. You know what? Even though I picked Michigan, I can't be mad at you, Brandon. I can't be mad at you. It's I think it's a tough pick. If Georgia wins, I'm fine with it. I think it's just it's a hard matchup this year. But you know what? I'm glad that it's something different. We're not getting an Alabama Georgia national championship or an Alabama Clemson national championship again. So I'm happy with that. With that, sticking on college football, we're going to stay in the transfer portal because the transfer portal has been pretty big on day one. Jonka seems pretty hyped over there because he thinks Miami Hurricanes going to make a splash in the transfer portal. He's tweeting at guys on Twitter to come down to Miami to join Mario Cristobal. So let me tell you some names here, some big names that have entered the transfer portal on day one. So Oklahoma State's quarterback Spencer Sanders has entered the transfer portal. Quarterback of Texas, Hudson Card, has entered the transfer portal. Of course, this is the biggest one, I think. Clemson's quarterback has entered the transfer portal. Devin Leary, quarterback of NC State, has also entered the transfer portal. We've got Fentrell Cypress out of Virginia, cornerback. Also, Spencer Rattler is back on the transfer portal.
Yeah.
We all know how that's gone. Oklahoma, over to South Carolina. His tight end, Austin Sogner, is in the transfer portal as well. Dante Thornton, wide receiver out of Oregon, is Jonka, of course. Jonka, I think you said he liked your tweet last night, right?
Seven McGee.
Oh, okay.
But we can't confirm, though. Probably a next UM guy.
Yep.
Jeff Sims, quarterback out of Georgia Tech. Graham Mertz, quarterback out of Wisconsin. DJ Harris, defensive line out of Texas. Austin Reed, the quarterback of the Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky, hits the transfer portal. LJ Johnson, running back. Jonka knows this guy well. LJ Johnson, running back out of Texas A&M, hit the transfer portal. Ole Miss's quarterback is into the transfer portal as well. Not sure Jonka knows this guy out of Oregon, linebacker Justin Flo.
Oh, yeah. Five-star running back. Yeah.
Yep.
Linebacker, my bad.
Yeah, into the transfer portal. But those are some of the biggest names to hit the transfer portal on day one. I don't know why, but this year it just seems to be like it is a NBA style type free agency special in college football where all the big names have decided to switch places. Let's start with Jonka first, who is excited. Tell us some more about the Miami Hurricanes recruiting process so far. It's day one, but yeah, give us some more insight on that.
Well, Miami was able to flip Collins and if I'm saying this wrong, a Chiampong from Michigan, and shocking stat that was supposedly Collins and Chiampong was Michigan's #1 recruit for next year. and Mario Cristobal was able to flip him to Miami. And then recently, Joshua Horton, that he was a North Carolina commit, and he was supposed to be like this next level talent. We were able to flip him too. There's rumors that a lot of Oregon players are leaving, and those are also players that Mario Cristobal recruited himself. So there's a lot of people wanting to come to Miami, hopefully. One more Oregon offensive tackle, Bram Walden, has received an offer from Miami. Seven McGee, Justin Flo, I forgot what his name, Thornton Jr.
Yeah,
We're getting a lot of players that want to come to play. Former Gator linebacker Chief Borders. I don't know if you know Brandon.
Oh yeah, I'm aware. It's not too long ago.
I want to ask Jonka,
Hmm?
if Miami lands these guys, and Miami has one of the top recruiting classes in the nation, as your article stated today that posted, number 8 for 2023 in the nation.
That's right now, yeah.
You guys get these guys, and let's say it doesn't work out. What will you say?
Like work out what? Like this next coming season, or the next like
upcoming seasons with Mario Cristobal, or at least in the next 2 seasons? If it doesn't work out, what will be the response?
Like not work out in what way? Like no bowl game, or just like
no bowl game, or even a bowl game and a loss in a bowl game. But we all know that the standard at the U is not just a bowl game; it's a national championship.
Yeah, so I know that's the one thing we have against ourselves.
If you don't even sniff that, what would be the response, not only from you, but like from the University of Miami in general?
I just think as of right now, Miami is having like a total sweep of the entire team. I think they just want like basically a brand new team from scratch. Like watch out next year, you're not gonna know the majority of the team that's on the field at the time. So I just think you're gonna have to give maybe not 2 years, because these are fresh guys they're coming into the system. Maybe 3. Give the freshmen like some time to come in, but also at the same time, like we gotta remember these guys are basically our age. Like, they do make mistakes. They're not pros yet.
Right.
So, I mean, but that's all what comes to coaching. And I think Mario Cristobal. Oh, and hot news. Supposedly, there's rumors that Josh Gaddis might be going to Iowa as a new offensive coordinator or head coach. We don't know yet.
That is very big news.
Yeah.
So he might be staying or he might be leaving, and I think that right now is what's causing a lot of like tension in the university right now, because for offensive players, like we're trying to get Brendan Innes, who's an Ohio State commit, to come to Miami. He plays for, I think American Heritage, or something like that.
Yeah.
We're trying to flip him. Mario Cristobal has been heavy on him, but he wants to go to Ohio State, where their offensive stuff is like all sorted out. But as of right now, with all this drama with Josh Gaddis, it's making it a little difficult to get offensive players like Mark Fletcher. I don't know if you guys heard of him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get him too. I mean, we and also the biggest disappointment about Josh Gaddis is that we noticed when this happened is Tyler Van Dyke and Jay Garcia stayed at the U.
Yep.
I was like, okay. I was like, all right, I'm fine with Tyler Van Dyke, but Jay Garcia. So I'm just like confused. Like, is this guy gone or is this guy staying? Because we saw Josh Gaddis not agree with Tyler Van Dyke, but he was able to fit the system with Jay Garcia. So I'm a bit like up in the air what's going on.
I will say from the transfer portal and the recruiting side of things for FIU, what I've heard from Coach McIntyre's staff, what I've heard is that they're very, very heavy on recruiting South Florida in this general area. They're very, very heavy on recruiting this area. I also know Brandon probably knows him as well as I do. FIU has lost Savion Collins. He's entered the transfer portal. And I believe they lost one of their running backs. I can't top of my head right now. I can't remember the name, but FIU lost one of the running backs, entered the transfer portal. But that's all I can report to you guys right now is from FIU is that they're looking. Obviously, I mean this is only day one. Literally today is day one.
Yeah.
But their mission is to recruit heavy locally in the South Florida area. Brandon, do you have anything to report to us in terms of the University of Florida as of day one?
Of course, and then also I also want to talk a little Colorado football afterwards
Oh
because
yes,
I think that definitely needs to be a topic if we're talking about transfer portal. But for the Gators themselves, about 11 of 22 guys which were recruited from Dan Mullen's era has now entered the transfer portal. Of course, as John mentioned before, Chiefs was one of them, and then we also have a bunch of O linemen as well leaving. So that'll be a big hole there that we'll have to figure out to fix here at the University of Florida. But I think the biggest news really is the quarterback room. Anthony Richardson actually declared earlier this afternoon that he'll be going and being eligible now for the NFL draft. And he's most likely going to be a first round pick, second round pick, despite the fact that basically he was kind of thrown into starting in probably one of the hardest seasons in the SEC. Ended up being successful at it, but I think maybe one more year would have been better for his development. Either way, he's definitely an NFL talent. So I'll basically, going to be seeing playing on Sundays instead of Saturdays, unfortunately, here in the Swamp. However, in the sense of transfer, that means that UF is in the need of a quarterback. And the one quarterback I think better than DJ that fits the system here in Florida, it's got to be Sam Hartman of Wake Forest. Now, the ACC is known for their phenomenal quarterback so far. Recently, we talked about the guy out of Pittsburgh that's now in the transfer portal. Hartman, of course, in the transfer portal. DJ in the transfer portal out of Clemson. So Hartman comes into UF. I mean, he's about 23 years old right now. So it comes with the experience. He played in the ACC championship game not too long ago, lost against Pickett in the world famous fake slide attempt.
yeah.
So I think that Hartman, he brings experience. I think that he's a huge name that I think people need to look at because, old age at 23, but he's not going to the NFL for most likely obvious reasons. The quarterback group this year, it's ridiculous in the draft. But if it goes to Florida, I mean, you never know. They might have a pretty good season. Not championship level, obviously, but, you get at least an 8-4 record. A lot of Gator fans were expecting that this year, but I think that the team rebuilds, the recruitment's there. And if Hartman joins the Gators, I think there's a guaranteed bowl game.
Now I gotta ask you because I know that you are heavy in the UF community with journalism and writing articles.
Mm-hmm.
And just news out of the athletic programs. You talk about the quarterback position. There was a story that came out. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
Story that came out last week with Jalen Kitna, who is the son of John Kitna, former backup for Tony Romo at the Dallas Cowboys. What was going on with that? Where was his future heading? Was he going to have a chance, or what was going on?
Well, for Kidna himself, because I remember being there during the spring and the fall training camps. I mean, he was basically the backup right ahead of Jake Miller, who was a transfer from Ohio State. Kidna obviously, had that type of. I mean, everyone thought he was going to go out there to start for the bowl game that the Gators are now playing in Las Vegas against Oregon State because he was basically that next guy up. Unless Jake Miller ended up having to, I believe it was a hand issue that he'd been dealing with throughout this entire season. But either way, Jalen Kidna ended up, and I don't know if you guys heard the full story or not, but for those who haven't heard, Kidna apparently was arrested, I believe, last week, Wednesday afternoon, for having possession of child pornography.
Yeah.
Really insane. I mean, honestly, I had to try to stop eating lunch because I couldn't believe the story. Apparently, they found a bunch of child pornography on him. And then I'm not too positive about the full details about it. I'm not too positive if he tried to share it, where he got it from, exactly why or whatnot. But either way, he was suspended from the Florida Gators football program. And then, of course, he is no longer, from what I can imagine at least, in UF. I believe he's back in Texas with his family because he got posted up on bail and left. But besides that, Jalen Kidna, crazy story as it is, very random. and very disgusting, as it should, to hear something like that coming out of UF. But, within less than a week, got arrested, put on bail, and now he's gone from the Gators.
Keeping with crazy stories like that, and it goes into our next topic. I don't know if you guys saw, it was late at night. I was on Twitter and I kept seeing news alerts saying that Antonio Brown was barricaded in his own home, facing tons of police officers. And since he was barricaded in his own home, the police officers had to bring a negotiator to be able to communicate with Antonio Brown, which we know that usually when there's a situation like that, it's because someone's holding someone hostage inside their own home. And it's crazy. Look, I think after even this issue that he had, his NFL career is done. The only way I can see a team picking him up is if it's a team that's like so desperate to make a move. But I think his NFL career is done. I don't think he'll ever step on a football field again. It's just too much baggage to bring on. And personally, I think that there's something else there. I think that he is suffering from some sort of CTE. Because if you look at previous interviews early on in his career, even to mid of his career, of Antonio Brown then and Antonio Brown now, it's like two totally different people.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like he's suffering from some sort of CTE, from concussions and from hits and stuff like that, and has just made him into a entirely different person.
I mean, because obviously, we always talk about, in football, some people do end up getting hit, and then of course it does cause, different behaviors that were unusual, or just in general, just issues mentally. I think Antonio Brown, I think he's just, excuse my language, but I think he's an asshole. That's what I think. I think that he was humbled at first, coming from Hollywood, obviously, hometown kid, went to Central Michigan, balled down the Steelers. Maybe they get a couple of hits there, no lie. But at the end of the day, I mean, you got to at least be a professional. We never see anybody, and I mean anybody, maybe Kanye, that might be behaving like this, where he's always in the news for the wrong reasons. And for some reason, he thinks that everybody's after him.
I think we're on the same level right now, to be honest with you.
I mean, I don't know, because like the way that Kanye's been acting about, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that didn't realize he was in a 12-hour standoff with police. You know what I mean? I mean, that's how crazy it is right now in the news cycle. I mean, it's insane. It's really insane. If you ask me personally, like, head trauma or not, there's reasons why, there's like help out there. If he doesn't want to take help, that's on him. That's on him. And if he wants to keep on getting worse or keep exploiting himself, like we've seen, I think it was last month he exploited himself at a pool. Either way, I mean, it's just been very disgusting. He has his own kids. And for a guy that's had a phenomenal NFL career, I mean, it's a shame he won't be remembered for it. So it's just bad. It's really bad to see.
Jonka?
I mean, I agree with everything both of you. I don't know what else to say. I mean,
what's your opinion? Give your opinion. What's your take on it? What's your opinion on it?
The guy is a lost cause.
Mm-hmm.
If Tom Brady couldn't help him, what makes you think anybody else could?
This is true.
Yeah.
The guy took off his uniform and threw the helmet onto the field mid-game. Buddy. Like, you're winning the game. What are you doing that for? Just because you couldn't get like your extra money? Buddy, listen, you can ask Tom Brady for an extra $1 million. I bet you he'd give you the $1 million just for you to behave yourself.
Mm.
I don't know what else to say about this guy. Like, every time something comes up with his Antonio Brown, I just hope it's some good news that he's gotten better. But it's like
it's never gonna. I don't know, man. I mean, therapy or not, he's always gonna be somewhere on Twitter. Unfortunately, in
Yeah.
a bad 32-second clip. That's all I know.
Sticking to the NFL, I've been waiting for this moment since yesterday, and it is power rankings time. We've been doing this each week. My 5 and my power rankings have changed, Brandon and Janka. I'll go first. At number 1, I will have the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right.
At number 2, I will have the Dallas Cowboys. At number 3, falling from number 1 after their loss this week, the Kansas City Chiefs. At 4, I will have the Buffalo Bills. And at 5, I will have the Minnesota Vikings. So I will be taking the Miami Dolphins out of the top 5 after their loss this week. That is my top 5. Janka, you go ahead next and give your top 5. Your power rankings after this weekend.
I don't see it. I mean, I have to agree with your top 5. I don't see. Maybe I would put the 49ers over the Vikings, but the thing is that Jimmy Garoppolo did get injured,
Out, yeah.
Yeah.
and so I'm like I can't do that yet. Maybe if this guy Purdy outplays
He didn't
him,
do too bad the rest of that game.
he threw a couple iffy passes, but he didn't play that bad. I
Yeah.
think he just needs to get into the system a little bit more since he is a backup. But I gotta see week 6 coming in. I gotta let the time pass.
Which is unfortunate because you and I had a conversation yesterday, and you and I both agreed. I was like, I can see San Francisco as the dark horse heading into the playoffs. But now there's no Jimmy G. There's obviously no Trey Lance. And now you're on Purdy. You're on your third QB, and he's called Mr. Irrelevant. Let's see what he can do with it. Let's see what he can do with this opportunity, and if he can really keep – because I really think San Francisco with Deebo Samuel and adding Christian McCaffrey to the mix, I think they're a dark horse. I don't think people talk about them enough. But this is rare, Janka. This is a rare occurrence that you and I we agree on a top 5 here. This is great. We should do this more often. Brandon, your top 5.
For this one, obviously, I think I have to go to Buffalo. Obviously hard to win in New England at any time of the year, especially when New England is playing in those amazing throwback jerseys. I have to tell you, Jonko.
So Buffalo at 1.
Yeah, Buffalo 1. I think that from what I saw with the Kansas City game against the Bengals, I mean, obviously, as weird as it is, in 2 years, the Bengals and the Chiefs have played 3 times against each other. And every single time of those 3 times, it's always been a close game. It's always been a close matchup. And I thought that the Bengals, Cincinnati looked really impressive in that one. And Kansas City, I mean, I'm not going to let 1 week, determine where they stand. Unfortunately, I'm doing that for Miami just because I think that Tua just had a horrible game. So Miami's not in my top 5. But I would say Kansas City's still number 2. Number 3, I would have to go with the Dallas Cowboys. However, I just didn't like them at all through 3 quarters at all. I mean, if you can't shut up the Colts, I don't know what to tell you. However, the 4th quarter obviously proved that. 54-19 ending of the score.
Before you say anything, this is a Colts team that almost, and took them to overtime, I believe, defeated the 11-1 Philadelphia Eagles.
Close, but they didn't. But either way, the Dallas Cowboys have it number 3 because I think they're able to stick to it. And then obviously the Thanksgiving game was a huge one for the division. And this one, I mean, again, didn't like them through 3 quarters. But, I mean, just looking at the score, it's just insane, though. 54-19. And that was decided all in 12 minutes. So that was insane. At number 4, I still got Philadelphia in there. I think Philly's doing well, but at the same time, I don't like how their schedule faces off with other people's competition.
Yeah.
Like the Bills' schedule is obviously always tough. The Chiefs lost, but at the same time, we talk about a game against Cincinnati. Again, Cincinnati is always a hard matchup for them. So I think overall talent, the Eagles are great. But if I had to say, if we go straight to the playoffs, do I have them over the Bills? Do I have them over the Chiefs? I don't think the NFC is as strong as the AFC. So I have the Eagles at number 4, and then of course number 5 I have the Vikings. I still think they're holding by a thread. I really want to put Miami at number 5, just because I don't, again, I don't believe 1 week determines exactly where you are. But right now, Miami drops from number 2 to number 6 in the standings, and it's like everyone in the AFC. I mean, they're just alive. The Jets are alive. The Ravens are alive. Somehow, some way, the Browns are alive. So, I mean, the AFC is tough, but looking at the NFC and some of these teams, I mean, they got good records for a reason. So they've been able to travel across enemy lines the same way that Mike White ended up crossing over to Minnesota and had to get handed an L against Minnesota. So, with that being said, I got the Bills, Chiefs, Dallas Cowboys, Eagles, and then the Vikings coming out.
I think for the most part, I think all 3 of our top 5s are pretty similar, just some different spots here and there. But I think for the most part, our top 5 is pretty similar, same teams. Before we end the show, let's talk about the Dolphins. Let's talk local. Let's talk about the Dolphins. Tua had a bad day. But I think the reason why Tua had a bad day, and this is why I say they could be a dark horse, I think San Francisco's defense was eating him up alive and pressuring him big time. But yeah, 4 turnovers by Tua. It was a tough day for them. I mean, the only thing that helped him escape or keep in the game was Tyreek Hill.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kept him alive, was Tyreek Hill. And you just guys know he's a game changer. He makes plays. But other than that, it was an ugly performance overall. And Mike McDaniel's return to his former team was ruined.
Yeah, and when you look at Miami in the sense of offensively, they obviously weren't producing points that we expect them to. They were basically averaging at least 30 more a game really going into this one. And again, this was the chess match of the best offensive mind, but Kyle Shanahan defensively in that 49ers squad with Warner and all of them, they're just phenomenal. We talk about Christian McCaffrey, we talk about Deebo Samuel. I mean, what about the guys out there in the secondary of the 49ers? I mean, the way that Tua was throwing the ball around, I mean, he did not look comfortable in the second half of that game. I mean, let alone the Dolphins only put 7 points in that entire second half. I mean, if you ask me, the game started with a big bang, Sherfield 75-yard touchdown. Yep. But after that, I just wasn't seeing any production besides maybe Tyreek Hill and a long bomb. That's about it. That's about it. It was a slow day for Miami, and I think just because Kyle Shanahan, it's hard for a coach coming out of a branch to go chop down the tree. So McDaniels is not able to take out, Kyle Shanahan, who obviously they worked together in, Washington, right, when they were going back and forth. They worked together to go to a couple of Super Bowls in San Fran. I mean, it's hard to go against your former team knowing that, they know exactly what you're basically going to be doing. So it was a tough day for Miami, obviously.
And let's not forget Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle was basically a non-factor in this game. I mean, he did pick up an injury, came back in the game, and he tried, but really was a non-factor after that injury occurred. Jonko, what's your thought? Final thought, and we have time closing out here. Final thought on this game.
I was just thinking, I think we've seen, whenever Tua and the Dolphins play a really good defensive team or a really good team in general, Tua just ends up becoming one-dimensional, and you're just throwing for chuck plays to Tyreek Hill or Waddle just for big plays. If he didn't have Tyreek, he would just be would he be a quarterback that go bing bang boom 5 yards here, 10 yards here? You know what I mean? Going down the field, you're looking very one-dimensional to me when I see that. When I just see whenever you're in trouble, you're against a good defensive team, you can't score, you can't pass, you don't have a short game, so you just have to end up just chucking the play. And since you have the fastest wide receiver in the game, you chuck it and he's gonna be there to catch it. You're not looking at because any quarterback can do that right now. Let's be honest. Yeah, I can pass it to Tyreek Hill right now. Me too. Shit. But I gotta give credit. 49ers played really well. Hopefully, Waddle gets better, whatever injury he has. But they play the Chargers at Chargers.
Prime time, Sunday night football. That game got adjusted to Sunday night prime time.
Oh,
Listen, the Chargers defense isn't that bad either. And they got J.C. Jackson back. So I'm just letting everybody know. Tua better not choke this up. Because, hey, and then they play the Bills the week after at Bills.
Oh, yeah. And then Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Then it's the Packers. Then the Patriots. And then the Jets.
Okay. We should be fine.
This is like 5 straight games of consistent good defenses. Where I told Daniel like before yesterday that we're about to see if Tua does have the cojones to be the starting quarterback for the Dolphins, because these next 5 games are going to show who he is.
I agree with that, definitely. And again, guys, that's next Sunday, prime time Sunday night football. Dolphins, Chargers, not going to want to miss it. Tough upcoming schedule for the Miami Dolphins. Definitely going to test them. Hardest part of the schedule for them and see what they're made of and what Tua's made out of. But this is episode 74, folks. We hope everyone enjoyed it. It was a productive one. As always, from myself, Janka, and Brandon, we hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Good night, and we'll see you guys next week.
Support the troops.